good turnout for summer. Totally don't know why everybody's not coming out in the summer. I know in winter I'll be up in the snow hills. So. But anyway, so those that are new, every first Wednesday of the month we hold this. It's everything cloud. So if you have anything that you want to come up here and talk to us about cloud, if you have any topics of interest, if you want to hear about in the future, let me know. Happy to shape. We've got a forecast for the next 12 months of topics, which I'm actually thinking of sharing with everybody so you all know and you guys can all have a bit of a vote on where we're going. But regardless of that, feel free to give me your feedback on things that you want to hear about and know about. Even if it's, I heard a bit tonight about people talking about what is the cloud, and I think we've kind of skipped over that now that we've been having a lot of these. I think we're more than 12 months into having PUG events every month, so I can touch back on that as well, or even have a half session where we're doing a little bit of beginner stuff and a bit more advanced.
Question: if Unite has some new topic, we'd like you to search to teach us, and we email you or ask you at the end of the class.
Yeah, so on the meetup page, feel free to go to that. I think there's a message board, or you can just personally message me as well. But I'll see it if you put it on the message board. I'll see. I'm not sure if you guys can start a voting thing, but if not, that's where I'll probably do the vote. I'll publish all the topics for the next 12 months. I think you can have a vote on what topics are more interesting.
Yeah, I know you're thinking before.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So tonight's topic, cloud networks. So the idea, actually just going back on that. The idea of this is we'll be talking about all things cloud. Happy for anybody to interject, ask questions, come up here and tell me how it really works if I'm wrong. It is something that's new to this whole software-defined world. Software-defined networking is probably what I'll be touching on mainly tonight. But there's a lot of, the whole term software-defined is, I think, becoming like the term cloud, where cloud is something that everybody's attached themselves to. And now software-defined is something, the next thing that everybody's just going to say, oh yeah, me too, I'm doing software-defined as well. So with networking, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's something that, again, like cloud to me is just another word for data center. And software-defined networking is something where I think we've been starting to see smart switches and smart hubs and routers coming in over the last 10 years. And now we're starting to see management tools that do it all. So just quickly the agenda. Intro, we'll take our sponsors quickly. Cloud recap, so we'll go through the last month's announcements around the major cloud providers. And if you don't have to take photos or write it down, it'll be published later this week on the website. Then I'll get into cloud network handicaps, software-defined networking, and then just one vendor I picked out, which is in the networking world, traditionally, everybody seems to know about Cisco. It seems to be the standard thing, so I picked them. Tried to get somebody from Cisco out here, but they let me know at the last second that they couldn't muster it together. So that's okay. I'll do my best at covering the Cisco world, but there's probably others here that have got a lot more experience than me, maybe, on the Cisco thing. So feel free to speak up, correct me, or add to what I cover. Then lightning talks. If anybody here has got something fantastic they're doing for cloud, an app, a management tool, or something neat that they've seen recently, a new announcement around the cloud that I don't cover, feel free to jump up at the end and let us all know. So just the PUG concept. I think I went over that before, but so we've reached over 200 vendors now. I think our promise to our vendors was to reach 300 by the end of the year, so we're a little over halfway through the year, and we're past halfway in memberships. So that's looking good, and yeah, so spread the word if you think anybody would find this event useful. We're looking for speakers. The next event that we're going to be doing will be on operating systems that tie into the cloud, so we're looking for speakers on Red Hat, Windows. And then after that, we're going to future event this year we're going to be looking at big data and analytics. So if you know anybody who works in that realm of things, let me know, and or if anybody here, let me know, and we'll be happy to have you up and talk. On that topic of people coming up and talking, volunteers as well. I was a little light-handed tonight getting everything, so that's probably why I'm sweating. But anybody who can help out like 15, 20 minutes before the start of the event, just to go grab some things from down the road, it helps a lot for me just to be relaxed before we start. And the whole idea of this is to educate, help, share, learn. Not just me, you don't want it to be a monologue, you guys listening to me. I want to help you guys get involved, and I'm learning as well. The whole reason I'm doing this is not to make any money or anything, it's to purely learn from the interactions and hear of what everybody's doing. It kind of forces me to, otherwise all I do is head down working and then I look up and the whole cloud world's changed. So this sort of prompts me each month to actually research my knowledge, get up to date, so I'm not embarrassed when I stand in front of you. So that's my pressure. But also, I get a lot back from you guys by talking about what everybody's doing in the industry and just hearing some real-world cases. So,
sorry, maybe it's true or not, I went to the seminar time because of my bad IT knowledge. And then I heard that some of the Microsoft said that you had make some connection about Microsoft stuff, you can get $40 at least a night.
Sorry, something about Microsoft?
If you get contact with Microsoft, about the Microsoft Azure or Microsoft stuff relating to your meetup, you get $40 at least a night.
Oh, okay, send me an email about that. If there's a link to, so you're saying we can get some free...
Yeah, there's sometimes they give you provide the food and the drinks.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, send me an email reminder about that and I'll look into that to find out whatever we can get from the big guys, Microsoft and that. It's always helpful. I'm surprised Jeff from the Azure user group, maybe he is already using that, didn't let me know. So yeah, no agenda, just cloud topics, and then the lightning talks that we'll talk about at the end. Feel free to jump up and let us know what you've seen, heard, or doing. Videos of every event is up on coffeecloud.net, that's my personal blog. Got the Cloud News headlines that we'll go through next is up there every month, and the past videos for these events is up there as well. I think we're a couple of months behind, but they'll be catching up after this one. And if you know of any other cloud-related user groups out there that would like to take advantage of our equipment and our video editing guide to put together videos, we're happy to record and put up online those events as well. We've done it for the PHP user group, I think some other mobile development user groups as well. So we want to help, like we're getting funding from brands out there that will show next, but the whole idea is we want to share that with the cloud community, not just keep it within our little community here. So share the wealth. And then coming soon, talking about sharing the wealth, coming soon, we're looking at purchasing a server. So we can actually have hands-on here of hybrid cloud solutions and other solutions, if that makes sense. But hybrid cloud always seems to be a big topic, and it's always something hard to demo on a laptop that's not running a server, so to show it properly. So we're actually in the process of purchasing something that's small enough. It'll probably be a HP micro server, so that we can move it around and bring it here. And the idea will be during drinks and pizza and food, people can come up and try things out firsthand, and we can use it for demos as well. So just a quick plug for our sponsors, Nutanix being our major sponsor there, talking about the hybrid world. Even though they're doing hyper-converged hardware, they have plugins to the cloud to offload, such as storage and things like that. That makes sense because it's cheaper in the cloud for archiving. And then SoftChoice, where I'm from, we do the whole consulting and then implementing cloud solutions and other solutions, licensing for Microsoft and other technologies. plus do managed services around various things. Cisco being one of those, which is why that's top of mind for me tonight to pick as a name. Trend Micro, also a good sponsor. They've given us some good prizes in the past with FIFA, women's soccer tickets and things like that. Veeam as well, back up there for VMs, and they've got a good plug into the cloud. Doing a lot of work there. And then just my personal blog, threw that down there as well. And CodeCore. Got to thank CodeCore. They're always welcoming to let us use this space. So I had to give them a plug of their own on their own. Got their home page. So recap on the cloud. So I didn't cover too many different clouds. It seemed to be a quiet month for all the other clouds. Even for Azure and AWS, you usually have a massive list of things that are interesting. Mainly last month I found that everything was just going to general availability. Lots of things that were in beta. Amazon, I reckon that's probably because they've got their big reInvent summit happening in a couple of months. So they're probably holding a few big major things back. Google, I think it was most interesting for Google last month. They did a lot of catch up. There was even a few, I raised my eyebrows on a few things because I was talking to some people earlier. I was surprised that they didn't already have some things. But just going through Google, so they've got this, I think this is something unique for Google compared to the other cloud players. I don't know. I think there might be third parties that do things for the other cloud players, but Google themselves has got their own console that works with Android and iOS. So you can be on holidays and still monitor your cloud environment from there, from your phone. VMware joined Google and Linux's initiative with their Cloud Native Computing Foundation. The whole idea of that is to kind of standardize how apps are put into the cloud and make that sort of a no-nonsense thing where we just throw our code into the cloud and it just pops out the other end. And they know all the magic.
Does that relate to OpenStack or is that totally different?
It might do. I'm not sure who's already part of it.
Right.
Obviously, OpenStack's kind of a competitor to the Google bit. I just know that Google and Linux are both the key people part of that. I wouldn't be surprised also if there's other initiatives that compete against it as well. But it did draw my attention by seeing VMware, Google, Linux, all seems to be kind of a good little force there of, I mean, Google, we were talking earlier about their app engine being quite good, probably, in my opinion, the best thing that they've got out there at the moment around the cloud. So for them to be forming the standards around app development kind of makes sense to me. Windows services, the biggest one that I didn't realize that they didn't already have is support for Windows Server on Google's compute engine. I guess the compute engine has been lying a little low. I think it has a lot of promise there, but I was very surprised that it's only just got general availability for Windows servers, which makes me think I need to reevaluate because I hate jumping into things as soon as they kick off. So that probably it's great, but I thought they were at least 6-12 months ahead on that. Like I thought that would have been standard by now. So yeah, but it's interesting that they've now, in my opinion, on the VMs, they'll be level playing field with everybody else, and it will be interesting to see a comparison of features for VMs running on Google, Amazon, AWS, Software, all those guys. And then Go language has gone GA on the App Engine, so you can throw your Go code in there. I think, what was it? Amazon announced 2 months ago that Go language was GA on their side of things as well.
What's the Go language?
So I think, don't quote me on this, but it's actually what Docker and other new technologies have been built on. So it's something that's gaining in popularity, I think, just because of the credibility about Docker and those sort of pieces.
I'm sorry, are you saying that this is like the native tool of the containerization layer?
I think so. That's what I'm led to believe. Just in my short bits of research about it. It does sound like it's still in its early days, but it's something everybody's excited about. It did get announced by Google, what was it? I think about 12 months ago or something that they were doing it, and then all these other languages became available before it. So I think everybody kind of thought, oh, it's kind of gone by the wayside. But so their announcement last month of it going general availability means that it's got credibility now. I think also they're probably pressure from the Amazon. I thought it was interesting that 12 months ago they announced it, then everybody thought it was dead, and then suddenly Amazon goes, yeah, we got it, and then 2 months later they go, yeah, me too. So
what does that really mean when they say that a language is available on a particular platform? Are they saying that they now have native OSs running that language for you to do development on?
So I guess with the App Engine, the whole idea is you throw your code in, and Amazon looks after the whole back end and everything for you. So it really means that they're now supporting you to throw Go code in there. And not only that, like before you could, obviously when it was in beta, but as soon as something goes general available, you know that it's probably not going to disappear. They're not going to scrap it as readily as Google normally does scrap things. But it'll probably also start getting key features and try to become in line with all the other code that's supported as general available. So that's the promising thing there for Go developers. I brought it up here because Go was something that I hadn't actually heard of before just recently. So I thought it was interesting to put it up there, brought to my attention, raised an eyebrow, so I thought I'd let you guys know about it. And yeah, it interests me enough to say, where's this code come from? I've never heard of it. And just in my short research, I found out Docker is
Just mention about Docker. For yesterday, BCMac, they said that Google and pushing onto the kinetic Docker and the Linux CodeCore tool, and also for Amazon, they going to the EC2. Yeah, I think a major for the Docker, we pasted the containers, okay? So maybe next time we had to give for the August or September topic for the Dockers.
Could be, yeah. If anybody wants to talk about Docker in the future.
Almost the same thing, but only different platform or OpenStack, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yes, that's right.
Just for those who couldn't hear, we're just talking about the fact that Docker is coming out on many cloud platforms, Amazon, Microsoft, Google. Google has contributed a lot to the Docker platform, even though they have their own competing one that they use in-house. So yeah, if anybody wants to explore that, and everybody agrees, we can explore that at a later date as well. Microsoft Azure, they've got new APIs there released around billing. This was really exciting for me. My team has been working on making Azure billing easier, and the APIs that were there before were just not very good. And so it's exciting to hear that they've got these new APIs now, because the biggest problem that we see all the time is people don't know how much they've spent. Well, they know how much they've spent on Azure, but if you're doing an Azure agreement where you pay up front for your credits, it doesn't actually tell you how much of those you've used. So you've got to sit back and add up your month's worth and then take it away from yours. And then what really happens in reality is you get to the end of your month and you've been really tight with your credits the whole time, then you find out you didn't even use half of them. So I think this will help developers like my team and that build things for everybody else a lot better and easier, a lot less manual work. There was an announcement about the new SDK for .NET. Azure Site Recovery went general availability. This is an interesting one. I didn't actually realize that they included AWS in their documentation here, but the whole idea of site recovery is that you can move your VMware, your Hyper-V, physical servers straight up to Azure's cloud. So it'll port them up there. And they also do AWS. I'm assuming any cloud would probably work because this is all from within the OS layer. The AWS only works for Windows, whereas the others do it for Linux as well, moving them up. But the fact that they point out AWS there, I guess it's because it's their major competitor. It must also mean that it's inside the Windows bit, the AWS, and which makes me think that any other cloud or anything should be able to use this as well. And they've got a, it sounds like a kind of a semi-permanent offer where they're doing a 31-day trial where there's no limits. So basically you could migrate your current infrastructure up to the cloud to Azure for free, assuming that you can do it all within 31 days. So that sounds great. I love it when Microsoft has really good backup solutions there inside the OS and that. It's something that they've really concentrated on. Removes a lot of the need for backup software as a separate service or product. There are some limitations and gotchas around things, especially if you've got multiple things going on. But the whole idea is that it should piece it all back together at the other end, look after the networking, the dependencies, things like that, back up in the cloud. So great for DR or even migrations straight up to the cloud. Amazon, this is something I think I asked for about 5 years ago. I was shocked that there's a 100 bucket limit. So S3 is the storage area where you can store files in the cloud for 3 cents a gig. And they've got a 100 bucket limit. Buckets are like your root directory folders, and they have a limit on 100. So what I've had to do in the past is make a folder, root folder, and then folders inside there, because the root area had the limit. You can now request that to be increased. I don't know how much more than 100 you can increase by. I've been told in the past it was a theoretical, well not theoretical, it was a limitation of how they do the technology in the back end for grid systems. But obviously there's a way around that. But I don't know how, I don't know whether you said 1,000, whether they laugh at you or not. AWS RDS is now offering SQL Enterprise. RDS is your SQL as a service, so you don't need a VM, you just query database tables up there and they'll look after the rest. So we've got the Enterprise license now, can be used in there. That opens up the door to have high availability over multiple regions, and increases the limit of the size limit on the database to 4 terabytes, and also allows you to have up to 20,000 IOPS. AWS Directory Services now supports Linux EC2 domain joining. That just means for those that don't know, it's Active Directory is a pretty major thing in the Microsoft world anyway. LDAP is the comparison to the Linux world a lot of the time, where you have servers, user logins, all centrally managed. So previously, when they first announced it, Windows was supported, and now they've added Linux to that mix. And finally, CloudWatch can now monitor workspaces. Workspaces is Amazon's VDI as a service. And VDI as a service, for those that don't know, like a remote desktop, a desktop in the cloud that you can log into, so you don't have to rely on your local desktop. So you could swap between many devices and PCs and still have the same desktop environment. So now you can monitor those. So if you're managing hundreds of thousands of desktops within your organization, you can now monitor those desktops to make sure that their storage isn't running out, that they're not maxing out their CPU, to make sure that you've allocated them the right size of VDI desktop. Does anybody have anything else that they heard that I haven't added to the list? I think I did cover, maybe last month, Microsoft made an announcement that they're bringing Azure to Canada, which is a big deal. I can't remember whether I missed that or not. I think it was on the website, but because we were doing a public roll last time, we might have not actually announced it at an actual meetup. But yeah, so they're going to have one in Quebec and one in Toronto. So that opens a lot of doors to, especially the government sector that's been restricted due to sovereignty laws. So that'll open up, but also latency for East Coast. Here, West Coast latency, well, we've got servers just below us down in Oregon and that, so that hasn't been as much of a concern over here on the West Coast in the past.
Azure TNS, did you cover the last one? It became 2 years.
Probably, I remember writing that, yeah. Yeah, I think last month I put up online all the announcements, which are already there, but we're all busy having a good time drinking at the keg, so there was no actual formal presentation, so that's why we missed it out there. You got in a month late. Instead, you've got to wait till next year now. You'd be like, I did a whole 12 months, where's the keg?
We have vacation for next year.
Okay, so cloud networking, handicaps. So I love talking about perceptions around cloud because they change all the time. Some of these things, these issues here are issues that I used to raise 2-3 years ago, still raising today with clients. I like to, even if the client doesn't bring it to my attention, I love to bring to their attention the pitfalls of the cloud. Last thing I want to do is get a client all excited about the cloud and then we deploy it and they say, you never told me that latency, compatibility, security is an issue. Why didn't you bring this to my attention? And some people might say, well, it's your responsibility to ask me the right questions and I'll tell you the right answers, but I'd rather set the expectations right from the start and not have anybody upset with me because we didn't think about these things properly and plan them out. And most of my work is hybrid for that very reason, and networking is one of the main reasons why most of my work is hybrid, because there are some things still that will work better locally than they will in the cloud. So latency. So some things to overcome latency concerns, compression or hybrid, like I was mentioning, a lot of my work is hybrid. Compression is something that's come a long way with riverbed technology. They're now selling it into a lot of other companies like NetApp and that are now buying into riverbed's technology to actually put it into their products. Compatibility. So there are a lot of, especially hardware storage vendors out there now, like Commvault, NetApp, EMC, those guys, all having native plugins now that will tie you into the major cloud providers. Because they recognize that everybody's saying, well, yeah, I want really expensive, great, local, fast storage to get me by for my mission critical stuff, but I really don't want to have archive information sitting on these expensive storage. So they recognize that, and they know that either people, I guess the theory is that if they don't give a good solution, then somebody's going to go out and buy an inferior, cheaper product for their archive storage, and it might slip in. So may as well embrace the cloud. Commvault's a good one in that although they're expensive themselves for all their licensing and everything, they were one of the first to start embracing and looking ahead to the cloud. And they've got a lot of stuff there. Even last reInvent by Amazon last year in October or November, they actually had a pretty major booth there. So did I think EMC and NetApp both, but at the time they didn't have the technology worked out as well as Commvault did. So they're all starting catching up. They're all pretty even playing fields now. I think Commvault's got a little bit of a head start on the rest when it comes to those storage providers.
What do you need, so to speak, a plug-in? If you've got your local storage, your expensive, high performance, high capacity local storage, the bottleneck is obviously going to be the bandwidth from your cloud. So why, in fact, do they, so to speak, need a plug-in? Is that just kind of like a blessing, so to speak, saying our storage can now, you can have a hybrid solution where some of the stuff can be in the cloud, or I don't really see why you need, so to speak, a plugin or even...
Well, the plugin word is more my term, but the way I really use the word plugin is usually they'll charge you extra licensing costs to open up the door to let you throw it straight into Amazon, Microsoft, or Google storage. The advantage is that you'll have one management console, so you're probably already using their management console to manage all the storage. And so that replication or moving of data up to there is all going to be managed through one scheduler. So you're going to get your alerts and everything managed instead of having, because you can do like Amazon, for instance, you can have a separate local storage VM appliance, and it could you could send store your archive data onto it, and then it could go up. but obviously then you're having two places to check to make sure things are working well. So
It seems to be kind of like a losing battle. I'm just theorizing down the road, like when the smoke clears, the Azures, the Amazons, they'll be there, but will the NetApps be there? Will the smaller players, not that they're small players, but they're certainly smaller than Amazon or Azure, be able to contain the customer in their management UI when in fact these larger players will have far more resources and far more customers to work on their management UIs? I would almost flip it around the other way and say that magically in the cloud.
So I know that Amazon, I was talking to somebody at Amazon last year at reInvent, and they were saying that one of their goals is to start shifting towards not just managing the cloud, but managing the physical. Microsoft are probably approaching it the other way. They have their system center, which is manage the local, and now they're trying to blur that with Azure, so they're trying to bring that to the cloud. It is interesting once we get into Cisco solution and software defined. You can see the network players are saying, look, we can manage the VMs and we can manage the network piece all from one. So it is interesting. I know what you're saying is they're going to have to all have this holistic approach to manage everything. I guess end of the day.
Well, it's impossible. I mean, it's going to be a battleground, right? Like in the end, you're going to say, where are more of my resources? That's where I want to manage them.
What I would like to see is, I think, the players like Microsoft and Amazon and Google and that have the central cloud platform that also manage the cloud and on-premise. And then maybe they have plugins to them where Cisco has a plugin. And you buy that because you want to see more network insight than what the standard generic gives you. That would be the world that I would like to see, where you pick one vendor who will look after the general overview of everything, but then the players that get better into storage, better into networking, and that have a tie into that. This isn't new. This is something that I remember doing managed services, and we would have a central console, and there was a lot of players in doing that central console, and they would have plugins for your backup, for your antivirus, and this and that. Or some of them would try to do it all themselves, and they'd never do a great job, and they'd always pick the cheapest and nastiest antivirus products to go with so they can make more margin. It's something that repeats itself, I think, and I think by the time they'll sort themselves out, there'll be something new after cloud. It'll be cloud 4.0 or something like that.
There's actually room there for maybe a vendor to create a management-only solution that could actually gain enough traction that it is the preferred tool over these huge cloud vendors or these hardware vendors. It's an interesting intermediate space.
And there is a lot of players out there doing that. There's a lot out there that concentrate on the developer space, a lot that are just concentrating on, as you know, if anybody here has used Amazon before, one of the biggest comparisons I make to Amazon to someone like Microsoft is Microsoft's done a really polished, neat job of their console to manage everything. Amazon is a bit of a dog's breakfast. But it opens up opportunities. There's such a community there of other third-party web pages that you plug into your Amazon to manage it for that very reason. So, whereas Microsoft may have scared everybody off by doing too good a job. I don't know. So that actually touches on what I was going to say, is third parties. So there's a lot of third-party products out there as well. A lot of the software defined and stuff around so many different solutions. And I'm concentrating on storage as an example. It does seem to tend to be the main one, but there could be compute. We've got clients that come to us saying we've got geo mapping and things like that, high performance compute that they need. There is high performance compute in the cloud, but moving that data back and forth can be a problem as well, sort of thing. So sometimes in those situations it depends on how much the data changes, compression and things like that can get around those, or we can have some workarounds. But generally it also depends on people's comfort level. We do a lot of proof of concepts around the cloud to make sure that these things actually play out the way they should. But end of the day, the person signing off on this stuff has to be comfortable with what it is. The cloud is something new and scary to a lot of people. To me, like I said, it's just a data center where I don't get to touch the hardware. But it's no different in my mind from the co-location solutions that I've used in the past, where I was leasing things from the vendor, and I never actually walked in there anyway. I got them to fix it if there was something needed done to it. So it's just one more layer I don't have to worry about in my mind. Talking about worry, security. So security is something that comes up all the time. I must say, security and networking are two hot topics I hear about all the time on the cloud. So there are encryption. You Google anything about cloud and security and you'll just read that about encryption in transit at rest. I think the only weakest point, if you use all the defaults that are there to enable, is actually the physical on-premise or in your own data center, where people stress to me and they say, oh, is the cloud secure? Is it going to be encrypted in transit? Is it going to be encrypted at rest? Yes, yes, yes. We do it all, and then we have a look at their on-premise and we go, oh, by the way, it's not encrypted in your storage. You better look after that, otherwise this is all for nothing, because your weakest point right now is your own environment sort of thing. And if people are going to be honest with themselves, Microsoft, Amazon, these big guys have got teams of people just concentrating on security, and they know it's going to hit front page tomorrow if their security falls over. Whereas your little data center that you have, you probably just got you, and you do many other things as well, not just security. And if you get breached tomorrow, it's probably not going to even hit the paper. So yeah, unless you're someone like Sony, which is also brought to me a lot of times, is, oh, well, what about Sony? They got hacked. Like, they're in the cloud. No, they weren't in the cloud, but they are moving to the cloud, which I've been reading a lot of stories lately about them taking on services from cloud providers. So that's interesting that they kind of jumped onto that for the future.
Yeah.
And actually, just on Sony are a movie, multimedia company sort of thing, so they're going to be doing a lot of that sort of stuff. Multimedia is something that is starting to be embraced by the cloud. Being allowed to film your 4K video in China, and for it to be coming back to the editors in LA within only a few hours for them to start their editing, while things stream across the cloud to get back to them. That sort of stuff's happening already today. There's a lot of third parties that have spent a lot of time and effort on that niche industry. And I used to say a few years ago that the second the movie industry can use the cloud for storage and live editing and things like that, I think it's opened up a lot of, it means that we've come to the point where the cloud can do most things.
But it goes back to that same point. It's all about the points of connectivity. It's all about the bandwidth. And at this point, a smaller industry can't afford the bandwidth that's required to make that a seamless transition. Sure, larger industries, companies like Sony can have that. They've got gigabit fiber everywhere to the cloud and back across their WANs. All their links are gig, right?
But I think at the end of the day, Sony's not going to spend 1,000 times more on getting some big bandwidth because they want to go to the cloud, unless they made sense. Because
they're an international company. It does make sense for other reasons. It's not just about those hard costs, right? It's about the fact that their infrastructure, the maintenance and management and scalability of that infrastructure is far more valuable to them when managed by people like Microsoft engineers, Google engineers, etc. Clearly, their own engineers are falling down on the job, right?
Well, obviously they didn't feel that way previously until they got hacked.
One breach, right?
So yeah, all it takes is one
hack an
hack.
inside job. I mean, there's somebody inside.
I don't know. I wrote a blog about it before.
Yeah, it's an inside job. You can't.
Yeah, anybody can be vulnerable because there's so many endpoints.
Yeah, end of the day, like I keep telling people, like the cloud providers out there do an amazing job. It is built by humans, so it's vulnerable to anything. But they do, like, the Heartbleed bug was patched on Microsoft and Amazon before it was even hitting the press. So that was all patched up. Whereas most system admins didn't even know about it yet when they were patching it. But what we build on top of their cloud is really still going to be a hole. Like, you've still got to make sure your patching is up to date, that you've got some security, you've got some sort of intrusion detection set up there, you've got something there like Microsoft and Amazon do a good job of protecting you from denial of service attacks and those sort of general things, because they don't want their network flooded either, and they don't want IP addresses getting blacklisted. but there's still people getting backdoor. Like there's a lot of hacks that happen where people find out, banks find out that only years later that they were breached many years ago, and there's been a Trojan sitting there for all that time. So they're the sort of hacks and sort of scams that still, no matter where you put your data, unless you disconnect it from the internet, totally, you're still going to have those vulnerabilities that we still need to look at, whether we're in the cloud or not.
But I think that's my point exactly. When your data is in a more, I'm not going to say public, but in a more active, reviewed, managed infrastructure, cloud-based infrastructure with this level of activity and visibility, it's a lot more probable that you're going to be on top of what's happening. Sure, your data set itself might be a black box of sorts, but right now you don't have anywhere near the visibility that you would have if you were leveraging this kind of infrastructure.
I think I agree with you.
It's inevitable, is what I'm saying. Like, there's
Yeah.
just no way you could possibly compete with this. It's really
No.
just a matter of cost. Once you can cross that cost threshold, it makes no sense to resist, right? And I'm not saying it's the answer for everybody, but it's inevitable. No one, like, I'm in IT, and there's no way we'll be able to maintain the level of service that these guys can maintain. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I guess it's like, not that I would say that the cloud guys are like the Ferrari of the car world, but it's like buying a brand new car that stays brand new all the time. And do you want to have that for your business, or can you get by with the second-hand car and it'll do the job and it'll get you by for the moment, and then maybe later on you can consider that brand new car. That's how I see these guys. It's like you hear about the hardware world when we go and we buy it's like a second-hand car. It keeps aging and aging. Eventually you've got to get a new one once you reach 200,000 Ks on the speedo, because serious things are going to start breaking. Whereas with the cloud, it's kept shining new the whole time. It doesn't have to be a Ferrari, it can be a little scooter moped or something, but at least you know that when you go to run it, it's going to start every time, because they're looking after the engine in the back end for you. So yeah, it depends on where you see the value, and that's what I was saying about traffic cost here. It depends. It really does depend, not just traffic cost, but the cost itself. And I've done comparisons. I just finished a report for a client just last week where we compared traditional infrastructure, Microsoft Azure and Amazon AWS, and a hybrid solution of the two. And they actually had $400,000 worth of, I think, IBM or HP server equipment sitting at the back doing nothing that they built 2 years ago. And they're like, we want to reuse this, but give me a cost analysis to see. And they were shocked at all the licensing that they had to buy, VMware, backup, antivirus, all this stuff that they didn't need to worry about with the cloud. And although the cloud was more expensive to get set up at first, the licensing costs for the first year outweighed that. And then when you saw the trend, we did a trend over 5 years. I think first year implementation was cheaper for traditional hardware compared to cloud, but licensing was much higher for traditional hardware. Second year, traditional hardware was cheaper. Third year, traditional hardware was cheaper, but then fourth year, it skyrocketed again. Obviously, there was a lot of licensing renewals and things like that. So, and also, that wasn't even taking into account refresher hardware. We were saying, look, it's already 2 years old. Like, most people recommend 3 to 4 years. Some people get away with 8 years. They never actually factor in the fact that they've replaced all the hard drives and everything but the motherboard.
And meanwhile, what's happening, those bandwidth costs are going to go down. And the hardware costs are going to go down as well, but probably not as exponentially as the bandwidth costs are going to go down. And the services are going to go up on the cloud side, and the maintenance is going to go up on the local side. So, you know, it's inevitable. It's just really a matter of where it works for each individual business. And this model is going to mature. And you know, the work that we do is very much on the tangible, physical side of things, but we don't see that continuing simply because you won't be able to compete with these huge vendors or with these constantly dropping prices. And the business shouldn't. They should leverage this, right? There's more value here.
So eventually there's going to be a point where that shiny new car is going to look very attractive.
It's the same
no
reason
matter who you are.
people lease their cars now. They lease their cars and they just give them back at the end of the year, and that's exactly what this is.
Yeah.
No need for us to concern about the capital expenditure, CapEx,
Exactly.
operational expense.
Yeah.
That means no concern.
Yeah, it'll just be a business cost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. For the budget, we only consume 2 things, CapEx and OpEx. That's it. So we go to cloud.
So we're running tight for time. I didn't realize this slide would create so much talk, but yeah, just the traffic cost. So I like to point this out to people. People always freak out to me about what's it going to cost. I've heard that HP and Dell will tell me it's a hotel in California. I can get in for free, but I can never get out, sort of thing. So I just did some quick pricing here to just give people an idea. 100 gig within the cloud, like within that cloud, is $2 a month. 100 gig over your VPN is $1 a month. 100 gig between West Coast, East Coast, between the same cloud is $2 a month. 100 gig of data in, yeah, it's free, but to get it out, obviously it's going to cost you a bit more over the internet. It's $8.91. But still, relatively, for most companies, 100 gig is probably a lot of data. And also when you think about compression and dedupe and those sort of things that are going on, I think this would cover most companies, and if not, they're probably doing technology where they're used to spending a lot more money anyway. So it's all relative to what you're expecting. US. So $1.20.
40.
Yeah. Okay, so software-defined networking. I'll do this in 5 minutes really quickly. So the idea of software-defined networking is that we've got this middle guy in the middle here looking after the management between the hardware and the software layer. The idea really is that it's not hardware dependent, it's not network dependent, it's not hypervisor dependent. It doesn't really matter what you're using, you can plug into all these things. And also plug in at the application layer, whether it be on-premise, traditional data center, or in one of the cloud providers. So the idea here is you have that central management area. It's looking after, it's the middleman, making sure everything stays generic as well. So when you set up your policies, your security policies, your IP addresses, all that, it all looks and feels the same, whether you're dealing with the cloud, public cloud, private cloud, your own in-house equipment. Where this is great is disaster recovery across country. Maybe you have an in-house that you want to DR to somewhere else in the cloud, which, because you don't have a data center in the East Coast or a relationship, you could take advantage of Amazon or Microsoft there. Test dev, patching, you could do that, whether you do that maybe privately, you're doing your testing and then you're deploying it up to the cloud for the public, or maybe it's the other way around, you're using the cloud to scale quickly, spin up, do your testing, and then bring it back in-house onto your physical hardware, where you know you'll get the performance that you're after for those needs. The need for temporary expanding. Maybe you've got your big sales, it's retail maybe, there's Black Friday sales coming up, you only need it for maybe 1 day extra capacity, and you can expand that out to the cloud without having to relearn any new interface or anything, and then bring it back in-house after that. And then just separation of data centers, departments, testing, different IP addresses, different subnets, all that sort of mess. You're keeping that all central and keeping it nice and managed. So one thing I see all the time is people crossing over in IP address ranges and things, because one team is managing it in the cloud, the other team is managing it in-house, somebody else is using a different cloud. So this can help simplify that as well. Any questions about that? 60 seconds. And then just finally how that would tie into Cisco. So they've got their Cisco into Cloud Fabric. I know that they've got a lot of other cloud bits. I think somebody mentioned Meraki earlier. Not sure if this one's more for the enterprise class. I know Meraki's more for the small to medium-sized business. But it's still, I think it's along the same principle. This one, with their Intercloud Fabric, it's the same idea. It's the idea that you can have one controller, so you would install their software on a VM, on a server that you control here. You have a VM in the private cloud, you want to move it over to the public cloud, it looks after the whole shift for you. So it'll build that VM ready and look after all that management, one-click process, and it looks after that whole move to the public cloud and make sure that your IP addresses, your network, your subnet, your frameworks, your reports, all those sort of things are open and looked after automatically for you. So you don't have to worry about those sort of, that manual process. In the traditional world, take for example Amazon, you would have to make sure that the VM is the right type VHD or VMDX file. You have to make sure that it's the right size. You then do a command line that uploaded it. You have to wait. It puts it into an S3 bucket, separates it all out, and then compiles it back into a VM. If you've got a network card that doesn't have a fixed IP address, you're stuffed because you don't know how to communicate to it. So you've got to make sure there's all these gotchas that you've got to make sure of beforehand. If you had multiple network IP addresses, multiple network cards, and it didn't pick up the right one, you had to wait a long process to find that out, and all of a sudden you're sitting there going, oh, why can't I communicate to my server? Maybe you didn't make sure that the ports were open beforehand. Things like that, you've got to start again. All these situations, there's a lot of gotchas that you got to make sure. You've even got to make sure you've got the right .NET framework installed on the VM before going up there. It's been a while since moved one, but I know that there's a lot of little gotchas that have wasted a couple of days of my time when I first started moving things up to the Amazon cloud. So this takes care of all that for you.
This doesn't fix the hypervisor conversion. Anyways.
So yes, it does. So they do. Well, they say that they'll look after the whole shifting over, whether it's VMware or Hyper-V or KVM, or they say the hypervisor doesn't matter. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Because it takes the logic of the NICs and then reapplies.
Yeah, it sounds like they do more than just the network layer. It sounds like they do the VM as well. So they do the whole.
They're reinterpreting everything.
Yeah, I must say I only know this off reading. I haven't had any real world cases of this to use, but from what I've read, it takes that VM and moves it over. It doesn't say that it just takes the networking piece and moves it over and it's still up to you to move the VM. It says it moves the whole thing over for you.
Does that also mean that it's Cloud Handicaps?
But I
They
think
cannot have a leg in Amazon.
I think so. I reached out to Cisco before this talk to just find out if there is a published list of supported. I know on their site they call out OpenStack. And I think that's just for the private cloud side of things. Like they've probably got a good relationship there with OpenStack. But for the public cloud side of it, everybody I talked to said that they're not knowledgeable in the cloud space from Cisco. I even talked to their help desk, and they tried to give me an answer, but it wasn't really an
If
answer.
they can actually do that, I think a demo would be spectacular.
Well, this is the thing. So one of the things I want to do, I want to try this. I want to see if we can get Cisco in to show us this.
Right.
I'd love to compare this to one of our first user groups for this was actually comparing AWS and Microsoft. Oh no, sorry. Using Microsoft Hyper-V Manager and using VMware's vSphere, and comparing the two and moving up to Amazon. You can do it to Azure as well, but we'll just compare, showing, I think it was like a 3-click process for VMware. I can't remember for Azure, but that was a comparison. I want to do that again, but add Cisco to the mix, because I was actually surprised when I looked into this. I was like, this is more than networking. This is going beyond that sort of thing. So I'm really interested to see how it works in practice as well. So another thing for you guys to remind me of, it's something I probably won't forget, because I've been really interested. I know the Cisco people are getting comped really well on the cloud, they just don't know what it is. So I'm sure that they'll be keen once they find the right resources to come out and show us. The idea is that you keep your network consistent, security policy is the same, therefore your compliance, if you're getting audited for compliance, should be the same story across the network. They don't have to go, right, your on-premise is doing this, let's audit that, oh, your cloud is doing this. It should be all unified, so it makes that audit process a lot simpler. So you should be able to standardize there. And just, the software-defined networking, that's what this is. Network function virtualization. So I haven't looked into it much, but they talk about workflows and automation and things like this. So there's probably a lot of things that my brain starts going, oh wow, automation around networking. That might be, maybe it's around quads, quality of service. Maybe you can change those sort of things on the fly depending on what time of day it is or something like that. Maybe you can open and close ports automatically, I don't know. But that could be useful. I can see a lot of use cases for that where maybe you're a gambling site or a retail store where your workloads fluctuate all the time. You can set workflows and automation around different traffic and things like that, depending on what time of day it is. So, I mean, one example, I've had companies that have said, we want to block staff from going to certain websites except at lunchtime, and then we want to open it up. So there might be some things like that. Does anybody have any questions? I know I've flown through it. It's so long on that first slide when we flew through this, but I think I'd set up the premise for a lot in the first discussion anyway.
You know, I'm still not really clear. So software-defined network.
Yep.
It's kind of an ambiguous concept.
Well, it's like I said at the start, it's sort of like the cloud term a bit.
Yeah.
And probably we could get another speaker up here and they talk about software defined and they probably give a different maybe meaning. But my thinking of it is it's really about controlling things. I mean, I was talking about smart switches and things earlier and the first thing about smart switches that came out was you could have two switches, say, and you've got port 2 going to port 2 over here. And then software-wise, you can log into the switch and say, well, that port 2, I actually want to make it this port over here now. And you could change the route of those just by software
When
instead
you're
of
talking
being a
networking,
dumb
you're
switch.
talking, in the physical environment, you're talking about spanning tree protocol, routing.
The fact is, all this stuff can be much more intelligently and quickly interpreted by a computer than it can by us. We have to intervene. Anything that requires manual intervention is inefficient. Right, so this is all automated, it's all auto-sensing, and when you think about the devices that are traditionally connected to your network, well, they're going to be virtualized as well. So why does there need to be a bloody cable going out of the switch?
Well, you see, I do VMware, right? So, we work in vCenter, you have your virtual distributed switches.
There you go, you're already doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's your SDN.
I think, I think the second you go away from actually worrying about physical anymore, you are already some form of software defined. It's just how deep that software defined gets. And really, I guess this still is more about taking that software defined and standardizing it so that you're not having to play by Amazon's networking rules here and then your on-premise networking rules here. Also, the thing about this, from what I gather, is I didn't read anything that said you had to have Cisco hardware. So that I thought was really interesting. They couldn't answer that for me, but
I can assure
There's
you,
no way that
you will lean Cisco hardware.
That's a bread and butter.
so public cloud side, you're not going to have Cisco.
No,
So-
they can have the virtual appliance.
I'm sure there's features that they go, but if you have Cisco, it'll do this.
I'm
this,
sure
and
you're
this
gonna
better.
have a virtual appliance in the respect to cloud in order for it to be like any other NetScaler or Riverbed.
Well, they're selling you the software that controls it all.
And the future will be the VSAAP, virtualization software as a platform.
Okay? I mean, this
And
is
then
all about
SaaS.
Cisco interjecting themselves as an intermediary. This is all Cisco establishing a beachhead like every other vendor is going to do in the space between the physical and the virtual. This is the new frontier right here. Because it's going to last 10 years and then everything's going to be virtual in the cloud. So this is a very strategic play by them.
So virtualized software.
But only vendors like Cisco can do this right now. Because, and they're definitely going to say, oh, this side has to be all Cisco. The private cloud side, that's definitely.
Well, that's what we're going to find out. That'll be. You guys can all, when I get Cisco go in the room, send me your questions beforehand, so it's not embarrassing. I don't have any answers, but yeah, let's find out because I think it sounds really interesting. This whole bit, but also I wonder where this stops and System Center starts, or do they cross a little bit, or are they totally different, like vSphere and that, like. And you're talking up the back there about already doing this on VMware. Yeah, I when I read this, I was like, oh, okay, this is sort of the same, So I want to know the differences to see how it works in reality. Because there's one thing about reading something, another thing about seeing it in practice. So just finally, did anybody have any lightning talks? Anybody want to jump up? Say anything?
Is there any breach, like security, any serious security threat?
You mean in general or with software defined networking?
Like banking security. There's never really one that used it.
Sorry?
Never became a front page news.
Banks.
Don't look at the front page for news about security.
Security is a very boring topic. I had to get up here in a straight jacket to make it interesting. But I think actually in recent years there seems to be more and more stories about security breaches all the time. I think people are starting to just go, oh yeah, like what was it, LastPass? Just the other week, just secure your passwords, yet they were sending out emails to everybody going, there was a breach. And I think everybody was just like, yeah, it's another SaaS provider who's been breached somehow, which they say, oh, nothing important was taken, just your name and your phone number, not your passwords. But still, like, it's just another thing.
It's par for the course. I mean, the reality is there's no such thing as absolute security. It's impossible. Right? It's really just how vigilant you are and how competent your team is and how well you vet the vendors that you partner with.
I think the scarier thing is when you hear, it was a few years ago in the UK, somebody left a laptop in a taxi which had everybody's tax information on it in the whole of the UK. That sort of stuff scares me. I'm like, what was it doing on a laptop?
What was it doing unencrypted?
Yeah, exactly. What was it? That sort of thing scares me. People leaving USB keys, CDs, those sort of things that an IT department can't manage remotely. That stuff scares me. So.
This is a session for RMS.
Yeah.
Measured, right?
So next event. For those new, first Wednesday of every month we hold the PUG group. 2nd of September will be our next one. It's to be announced. We'll either have it here at CodeCore or Robson's Data Center, which is in Burnaby, just off the SkyTrain. Don't ask me which stop. I will let everybody know. I'll probably put a map up there or something. But if we do have it at Robson's, we're hoping to have something pretty fantastic there with a rock band playing cloud themed songs stuff, just to make things interesting.
Smoke machine? It should be cloudy.
Hey, there we go. You just signed a volunteer right there.
You're gonna raise it. Snow machine.
The topic will be on Cloud OS, so we'll be looking into Linux, Red Hat. Hoping to get a speaker from Red Hat. Hopefully we can get, if anybody knows anybody at Microsoft, can pressure them into sending somebody out to talk about Windows 10 and Windows Server. Love to have them out.
Tell them to bring free copies.
Sorry?
Free copies.
Oh.
It's free.
They used to do that.
Wow.
It's free.
It is free unless you didn't pay. You're a Linux user, right? They're going to convert you. And then Windows Server 2016 is coming out next year. It's supposed to have a lot of cloud tie-ins, so I want to put together whatever information I can that I'm not under NDA to let you guys know about. But it does sound very exciting what they're doing there. They're really shifting towards not being having to scale servers vertically, but being able to do the same thing Linux is doing great in the cloud, which is scale things out horizontally. And then the demo server that I was talking about earlier, hopefully we'll have that by then and we can try out these different OSs and how they tie into the cloud. A little thing here, a little URL here I'll publish online as well. For anybody, there's, I think it finishes today or tomorrow. So actually just email me if you want to get this URL if you don't have it. But it's, if anybody's interested in AWS and looking to do the exam, I just purchased this today. I haven't tried it out yet, but it was only $29. And then when I signed up, it gave me another 10% off, so it was like $26. It's an
For one time or for
online
many times?
course. Sorry?
For one time or many times?
I don't know. I wasn't prepared to press the play button until I'm prepared to watch it because I'm afraid that I might press play and then it goes, oh, that's it, you've watched it. And then I'll be really disappointed if that's the case. But
Screens on end.
If you pass, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did not pass. Let me watch it again. So anyway, I feel like it's so cheap. Hopefully it'll be a win-win. I think there's about 4 courses in it, so 4 different AWS exams supposed to cover it all. So it sounds pretty good. I've signed up today. I'll let you all know how it goes, but the offer's only on until tomorrow. Might be one of those offers that never expires, but and they just put an $800 price tag on the regular price, but it never is, like a set of steak knives maybe. But yeah, it was like 80% off or something like that. So that was the official discount. Contact me if you want to do some lightning talks up here. Talk to us about what you guys are doing in the cloud. If you know anybody interested in sponsoring, just even one event, just to pay for the food and beers and stuff like that, let us know. And the video for this will be available in the coming month on Copy Cloud. And yeah, most of all, let me know what you guys want to hear. I'll try to get that voting up online. Feel free to annoy me if you don't see it up online to remind me to do that. But yeah, thank you everybody for coming.